Equalization Fund is a fund which was introduced by the Constitution of Kenya 2010. Its role basically was to help bring up some counties which were identified as marginalized in the country, to bring them to what may be called to the same level of those other counties which have developed to some level, and it was felt that some of these marginalized counties were being left behind. These counties were in the first equalization sessional paper. We had about 14 counties which were identified as marginalized in the country. These counties were Garissa, Tana River, Lamu, Kwale, Kilifi, Wajir, Mandera, Marsabit, Narok, West Pokot, and Turkana. So once these counties were identified, it was agreed as per the Constitution that a certain portion, I think 5% of the audited government revenue should be identified as the Equalization Fund. Once this amount of money was identified, it was agreed that the 14 counties will identify sectors which require to be improved by this funding through stakeholder workshops. These sectors were water, health, education, energy or power, and roads. It was agreed, I think the government did realize that most of the number of counties identified the road sector as some areas which needed to be improved or to be brought to some level of connectivity. Most of these roads, as per the prioritized areas, happen to be under the mandate of the Kenya Rural Roads Authority. And that is how KeRRA came to get involved in the equalization program. The Treasury identified KeRRA through our ministry as the implementing agency with regard to the road portfolio. We received about 3.5 billion in financial year 17-18, which was now already through the stakeholder engagements. All these roads had been identified in the 14 counties, and we are now to implement these projects. Most of these projects entailed opening up of roads, construction of bridges, box culvert, to enhance accessibility in the identified areas. The program has been going on, and to date we had about 80 projects. We have been able to procure about 75, and already we have completed about 60 of them. The main one was basically how the whole program maybe was conceptualized, because in as much there were stakeholder engagements during this process, KeRRA as the implementing agency was not involved in this process. So we ended up getting roads which had been allocated money. So when our engineers went to the ground, there were challenges considering the amount of money available versus most of the work which required to be done on the identified roads. Another success issue area that I may also mention is West Pokot, whereby some people have never seen a vehicle. They're only used to people walking, and some of the communities, especially the most affected parts of our community, that is women and children, were quite overwhelmed by what was happening. So I think as KeRRA, we have made a very big impact. But despite all this, some of the challenges is that people may want more. So when we go to open a road, there's people who are asking us, so when are you going to do the tarmac? And we were like, we don't have the money for the tarmac. So you have a situation whereby people are happy, but it's human nature to always want more. But we are very happy with what happened, and we still expect that whatever little was done by government through Kenya Rural Roads Authority will be taken up by the various county government to make sure whatever has been done is maintained and it is brought to a level whereby the communities can continue enjoying these services. So the other issue was, of course, the issue of politics, whereby some people feel that they were not involved. These are some of the challenges we had to surmount, but it is good to point out that once the county governments, for example, did realize what the national government was doing, they were very appreciative of our effort, and they did agree to partner in some of the areas to improve the sections of roads which were not completed. Maybe let's also point out, maybe going forward, in terms of recommendation, one of the things that needs to be done, if possible, is whereby some of these things we don't skip what I may refer to as a planning cycle. It's always good before. The challenge we have is that budgets are allocated before the requirements are identified. So we always have a situation whereby people are not satisfied with what the government has done, and government is always being accused of maybe having done shoddy works, but nobody wants to find out what is the story behind what most we do. One of the challenges we have is budgets being allocated to projects before a proper needs assessment is done. But despite all that, I'm happy to report that this was a big success, and we're looking forward maybe to the next, once the next formula of equalization is agreed between our Treasury, the National Assembly and the Senate. They'll identify the best mode of delivery of the program, whether it is the national government or the county government, and going forward, maybe based on lessons learned, we can always partner and train our counterparts, maybe the county government, what needs to be done so that the second phase of equalization will be a success.